Welcoming you back to the second session of today's seminar. As we have a lot of late joiners for the first session, I kindly request all of you to switch off your mobile phones till the seminar is over. Thank you. I now kindly request revered Pravrajika Divyanandaprana Mataji from Sharada Math, Ramakrishna Sharada Mission, New Delhi, to speak on the topic Impact of Ramakrishna Mission in the West. Revered Mataji.
Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhur Om Namah Shri Atirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. My pranams at the feet of the Holy Trio. Pranams to all Maharajs here and to Matajis. And namaste to all devotees. I am going to mainly focus on the impact of the Ramakrishna movement in the West, because I think you are fairly acquainted with the functioning, the works of the movement here in India. But you know, a lot of work is also happening in the West. A number of centers and associated activities. So we will dwell more on that, but first I want to give you a background to the Western work. In 1886, 3 days before Sri Ramakrishna's passing, he called Narendranath Datta to him. Narendranath came to him and sat at his feet. Sri Ramakrishna looked at him steadfastly for a few minutes and went into samadhi. Narendranath was sitting there, but he felt a kind of electric current go through him, through his entire body. And he felt as if he had been energized from within. It was indescribable what he felt. In fact, he lost normal consciousness. He himself went into a samadhi-like state. And when he came out of that state into normal consciousness, he found the master sitting and weeping before him. Sri Ramakrishna was shedding tears. And then he said, Naren, today I have given you my all and become a fakir. I have given all my spiritual power to you. And with this power, you will do great good to this world. You are born for that. And only then, after that, you will come back to me. So you see, these divine personages, they came with a mission. The Ramakrishna mission embodies their divine vision, the divine purpose for which they came. It is all, it is all pre-planned. It is happening with God's will. I get this sense in all the activities that we are doing, that it is happening out of a divine plan. We don't know what it is. We are just like puppets, instruments. They are putting us here and there to do certain work. But it is all being energized and directed from that divine epicenter. This entire movement is like that. So whoever joins with this movement, affiliates with this, will naturally draw that divine power. It is such a sattvic force in the world, think and see. And how easy has been made the path to our salvation. Just by working for the Lord, worshipping Him in all beings, you can attain the highest. So Atmano Mokshartham Jagadhitaya is an enormous ideal. And the impact of a spiritual movement comes from the spiritual realization of its masters, its founders, and its members. There is no other way to spiritual impact. Impact of any work, in fact, comes from our inner life, isn't it? From our inner realization. So if this movement is making such a huge wave, such a huge impact, you can imagine the spiritual power behind it, the extent of the spiritual realization behind it. All of you are well acquainted with Sri Ramakrishna's life. That is the source. What tremendous sadhana. A life lived in God consciousness. A life lived in such a way, you can't separate him from God, from our understanding of God. In fact, we would not have known what God means until you read Sri Ramakrishna. The concept of God comes into our mind very clearly when we see personages like this, steeped in God consciousness, steeped in samadhi. So the entire philosophy of this order has been drawn from those states, from that awareness, from that divine consciousness. So actually joining with this movement means imbibing something of that, bringing something of that into our lives. After all, for that only we are here, isn't it? What are the purposes there in coming into a spiritual family, a spiritual organization? So the Ramakrishna mission has as its epicenter the life of Sri Ramakrishna and the spiritual dynamo which was Swami Vivekananda. You have read their lives very well, but one more incident which I would like to tell you here is how it was the power of Sri Ramakrishna. He had seen the whole thing and how this nation would move in the future, that he especially empowered Swami Vivekananda to spread his message. In fact, he predicted it, what would happen right in his lifetime in many ways. Once he said, Naren Shikha Debe, and Narendranath was the young man, rebellious at that time. He said, I won't do anything like that. And Sri Ramakrishna said, your very bones will do it. So it is all pre-planned. It's a deterministic universe in many ways. What it means to say is there is a divine plan behind this entire movement. And when we join with the functioning of the movement, you draw from a divine source. This is the great blessing to our society. Before I go to the movement's impact on the West, let me give you a background of the atmosphere there for this movement to take root there. By the turn of the 19th century, the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads were widely available in the West. They were also read by many great thinkers. In fact, it was in 1650 that the Upanishads were first translated into Persian. The initiative was taken by Dara Shikoh, who was the son of Shah Jahan, and then it was translated into Latin and published in 1801 by Anquetil Duperron, who was a French savant. And it was published under the name Aupanikhat. And this Latin version came into the hands of Schopenhauer. And when he went through it, consequently it was translated into English also. When he went through it, he felt such a thrill. He said, this is the most important piece of literature available on the planet. It has been the solace of my life. It will be the solace of my death. And it is not just Schopenhauer. I have here a collection of facts and figures. I want to tell you all the names, the great names which you will find in different dimensions of life. They were, philosophers, thinkers, scientists, all of them drew heavily from the Upanishadic thought. They were influenced by it. They were impacted by it. So when Vivekananda went to the United States in 1893, the soil was already, fertile. They were able to take these ideas. And Vivekananda was a man of realization. His personality made the ultimate impact. So you see the names: William Blake, Goethe, Victor Hugo, Hegel, Kant, Schopenhauer, the Transcendentalists. The Transcendentalist movement was so big in America. Emerson, Thoreau, Walt Whitman, and all of the German Romantics and British Orientals, all of them were acquainted with Upanishadic thought. So actually, when Vivekananda went to the United States and Professor Henry Wright recognized him, recognized his worth, you know what he said? Well, in this young man, there's so much of knowledge. It is more than all our learned professors put together. And so he should be allowed to speak at the parliament. So what I want to tell you is this kind of fertile soil where there are so many minds waiting for this knowledge. And Vivekananda's realization, this ultimately made a tremendous impact. So when Maharaj already mentioned it, when Vivekananda stood up to speak, for 2 minutes initially, it was only the clapping. It was a welcoming of Vedant into the West. And not just the welcoming, it was a wholehearted acceptance of the philosophy of the Upanishads, of the science of consciousness in its modern interpretation, in the modern idiom, which the West so wholeheartedly accepted. All other organizations, Vivekananda was the forerunner of every other organization you will find today in the West. He was the first Indian yogi who formalized the teaching of Vedanta, who created the first organizations. In fact, the New York Center was the first center of the Ramakrishna mission, which Vivekananda envisioned. So he spent 5 years in the West, and slowly he understood that in organization lies strength, because it is to do with the coordination of wills. It is to do with one mind, a number of individuals, but one mind, of one mind. So that's an enormous power. He understood that, and the organization was set into motion. So, you see, even in 1894, and even in the beginning of 1895, Vivekananda was saying, I have no ambition beyond training individuals, no sect, no organization. Gradually it changed. And in 1894, at the Brooklyn Ethical Society, Vivekananda made a straight, comment which is so pointed. He said, I have a message for the West as Buddha had a message for the East. So then the movement, it was impacted by this spiritual, you can say, these great spiritual personalities. It was to happen. At the right time it happened. Then let me tell you a few more things which Vivekananda insisted in his initial days in the United States. Of course, all of you know about the Parliament of Religions, so I will not go into that. But after that, Vivekananda made some very interesting statements as regards the nature of his work, both in America and in India. He said, he insisted on promoting principles and not personalities. He said, principles are universal and not persons. This is a very Vedantic idea, See, our entire culture and spiritual heritage is based on Vedanta. Whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, that's the fact. Because it has percolated so much into Indian culture, our cultural values, our societies, that we must acknowledge this, that whatever we do, this sense of the divinity of our being, the purity of the human soul is always there. And the realization of that is Vedanta, isn't it? So this idea Vivekananda insisted. That is why he preached only Vedanta in the West. Only one lecture on my master on Sri Ramakrishna. The rest was Vedanta. The personality comes as a demonstration of the principle, as the highest demonstration of the principle. But the principle is most important. So you see, whenever I have been traveling to the West almost every year since a few years, and there really you can see the interest in this, in Vedanta. Do you know why it is? It is talking about your consciousness, your being, the nature of your existence. And that is not different from divine existence, from the nature of God. Your pure being, pure existence, the Atman within you, is nothing but a spark of that divine being. So because Vedanta talks of this, the appeal is so instant. And even little children, I will be giving you all the facts and figures of the work going on there. Even little children are so used to this idea there. If you go into schools, those little American children, they will say, oh, even they have yoga. As if They mean to say that we have it, already they also have it, which means it has spread so much. It has spread so much. Yoga, you will find yoga studios round the corner. Of course, the dominant philosophy is Buddhistic, especially in the US. But Vedanta has an instant appeal for the simple reason, human-centric. There is the divine consciousness in all beings. That is your true nature. And so Vedanta is the science of consciousness, and the technology for that is yoga, which gives you the means, the methods, the 4 yogas to reach the highest level, the highest reach of your consciousness. So you see, it is very, very appealing to just anyone on the planet because of its rational, universal outlook. And it's very harmonious ways of accepting all faiths, all paths. It's the psychological, spiritual framework behind every religion, in fact. So everybody is accommodated there. Absolutely no divisions, and absolutely no form of sectarianism, bigotry, fanaticism, intolerance. It has a new name today, fundamentalism. Nothing of this is there in the pure philosophy of Vedanta. And where Advait Vedanta will be accepted on its own terms, there everything good will flourish, because that is the truth of our life. That is the truth of existence. So you see, Vivekananda came with this tremendous philosophy, and because he could deliver it in very strong, in its purest form, and in the modern idiom, and with the strength and impact of his personality, it held an instant appeal. I'm sure you have read the Reminiscences of Swami Vivekananda, that book that shows you how they felt, the first people who heard him. What a revolutionary change occurred in them. Sister Christine and all have written so beautifully. In fact, even Swamiji's brother Mahendranath Datta, he also has mentioned very beautiful statements. He says, just listening a few minutes to Swamiji, after that it was more realizing than listening. It just entered your system. It turned into a meditation. For Sister Christine, it was a meditation. For Sister Nivedita, it was a total transformation of her personality. See, that Irish woman, born in Ireland, educated in England, dedicated her whole life for India. How do these things happen? It doesn't happen without the inner change and transformation. So people like Vivekananda do that. They change the hearts of people. They change the heart. This is the real conversion. Changing the heart and mind of people. And it is such a broad, harmonious philosophy of life. Everybody can be accommodated into it. So this is the universal sweep of Vedanta. And Vivekananda's principles on Vedanta, in fact, he, interpreted Hinduism for the modern world, for the modern man, in such a rational way that today we are able to, it's the new charter of Hinduism, as Sister Nivedita put it. You can accept every sentence that he says will impact you. Please read through the introduction to the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. It is the new charter of the Hindu faith. Every sentence he says, there's so much meaning in it, it impacts you. I felt that thrill even when I was a student. Something is there, this power is working through that literature. And when you read it, it just impacts you. So you see, Vivekananda impacted the lives of many key people while he was there. He worked 5 years in the US, and first of all, there was John D. Rockefeller. I'm sure you know the Rockefeller story. His philanthropic work started with Swami Vivekananda. It was impacted by Swami Vivekananda. And he was the owner and distributor of the Standard Oil Company. He was the Bill Gates of his time. And you know how Vivekananda changed his mindset? He felt that he should donate something. Vivekananda made him understand, you are doing it for your own sake. You are doing it as a form of worship. When he put the check in front of Swamiji and said, you can thank me for it, Vivekananda said, you should thank me for it. Because I have helped you manifest the divinity within you. So, changing the minds of these people. You see, the most difficult thing, especially for those of you who are teachers, it is to change the minds of people, to change their attitudes, to change their bhav. That will come only through a powerful mind, through a realized mind. So Vivekananda transformed all these people. You see, it included Sir Woodruff, even some of the ideas of Jung and Skinner, Skinner was a behavioral psychologist actually, who defined even compassion and all these virtues in terms of Sri Ramakrishna's concept of, a monastic unity, unity perceived in all beings. So all of them in their works, they have ideas of Ramakrishna Vivekananda, which they may have acknowledged, they may not have acknowledged, but it impacted all of these minds. Then Professor William James, he met Vivekananda only twice, but it was so revolutionary. He found Vivekananda to be a mighty mind. He is called the father of many aspects of Western psychology, William James. And he saw the demonstration of Samadhi, the highest reach of Raj Yoga in Vivekananda. Then Vivekananda discussed Vedantic cosmology with Tesla. Tesla was only a young man at that time. And the beauty of Tesla was he predicted the relationship between matter and energy long before Einstein's gave us the equation E is equal to mc squared. 10 years before that. And he even wrote to Vivekananda that I will demonstrate it to you. He would run and attend Vivekananda's lectures on Vedantic cosmology. This was his level of interest. And even some of the brother disciples of Swami Vivekananda, they also, like Swami Abhedananda, met Edison. A whole lot of Western intellectuals were affected by, of course, Vivekananda's tremendous impact was there, his brother disciples, and the first generation of monks, like for example Swami Ashokananda. If you go to the West Coast, you will see all these centers, the San Francisco Center, which is so huge. There are 40 nuns also there. It is so wonderful to see these American women in Gerua, all accomplished, capable of everything, doing tremendous work, so active, energized, and completely steeped in Vivekananda thought. So inspiring to see all this. Sacramento Center is there, Berkeley Center is there, at Lake Tahoe there is a cabin. So all these were put together by Swami Ashokananda, Swami Prabhavananda, again one of the first generation of monks. He deeply affected the writers Gerald Hurd, Christopher Isherwood and Aldous Huxley. These are very famous names in the West. And they influenced thousands of people all through the Ramakrishna movement. Then you have Swami Nikhilananji, who influenced J.D. Salinger and Joseph Campbell. Again, through them, thousands and thousands of people were affected with this thought. So you will find it in the works of many people. Ramakrishna Vivekananda thought, even Tolstoy speaks of it. And it percolated the Western society in many ways, the principles of Vedanta. Today it has become such a common way of thinking. And recently I just returned actually from a long trip of the United States and UK. So there I was invited actually by 7 universities, because I am working with IIT Delhi, and every semester we offer courses on Vedanta at IIT Delhi. They go under the names of Science of Happiness, Self-Discovery, Self-Inquiry. They will go by these names, but actually it is Yoga Vedanta. So if you, when I was in Princeton, I discovered all of them are following those courses. So many of the professors of Princeton are following these courses. It was such a shock for me, because I never thought that this was happening. And when I was in Princeton, I saw that many of them in their questions, they are quoting from what I have spoken in those courses. How is this happening? Why is this happening? Because Vedanta has entered the academia in a huge way as the science of consciousness. See, this is the new trend in Vedanta. And so many scientists, intellectuals all over the world are accepting this. In fact, in Princeton and Duke University, the halls were full. And so many of the faculty interacted with me. The videos are on YouTube, so you can watch them if you wish. The living interest in Vedanta, this is what I want you to see. Even today it is happening. Why is this happening? Because Vedanta is speaking of your real nature, your true being. And it is not different from the consciousness of God. One consciousness manifested in all beings. This is what we call Brahman. So this is the Virat aspect of that Brahman. In fact, in the heart of things, you are not even identified with your body. You may think you are a personality with this body and mind. But how many of us are conscious of our body? Think and see. Rarely you will be conscious of the body. So how can you be identified with a personality? You are just conscious. This is your experience at any moment of time. You are not conscious of you being a professor here and there or whatever. You are just aware. Bare awareness, pure consciousness. This is Vedanta. In your very experience, Vedanta does not lie in books or in lectures. It lies in the very structure of your experience. Pure being. It is through my awareness that I function. If this much we can grasp, Vedanta will enter your life. It is so obvious. If you can just understand that in the very nature of my being, I am. This is the most important fact of my life. Does anybody say, I'm not sure if I am? ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಹೀಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರಾ? ನಂಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಇದ್ದೀನೋ ಇಲ್ವೋ. Nobody will, even an idiot will not say this. Everybody knows I am. I am. What is that amness? Being. It is your consciousness, pure being. So the study of this, the science of this is Vedanta. I conducted a very interesting experiment on some of my students. 18 of them, in fact. They were in a classroom and they had not watched any of these videos and they did not know anything of Vedanta and the philosophical aspects they did not know. So I just asked them, see, tell me this, what feels like the most fundamental thing in your experience? What feels like the most fundamental thing in your experience? Is it your thought? Is it your emotion? Is it your will? Or is it your awareness? Multiple choice question. So they thought for a minute and said, Mataji, it's our awareness. I said, isn't it your thought? Then that boy said, no, Mataji, my thoughts come into my awareness and go out of it. Now what gave him this knowledge? See, the first person research methodology is this only. You are fundamentally aware. In that awareness, there is a thought process through which you identify with body and mind. Is this correct? So you see, Vedanta is in the very structure of your experience. It is not in a philosophy, it is not in books. It is the nature of my being. So it must be the most obvious science on the planet. The most studied, the most interesting, isn't it? This is how it is entering today into academic institutions as the science of consciousness, and yoga is the technology towards it. So Vivekananda had made this very explicit, in his Jnana Yoga lectures. He said the scientific method should also apply to religion, to real religion, to Vedanta. Because Vedanta is very scientific, very rational. It is about existential analysis. It is not about belief. What is existential analysis? Analyzing the nature of my existence. So the entire Vedanta Vichar is today called existential phenomenology in consciousness studies. It's a tremendous science. It is Vedanta Vichar fundamentally, put into scientific language. So you see, these are all the developments born of Vivekananda thought. I want you to see this. It's all nothing but Vivekananda thought coming in these ways. Vedanta ka naya roop hai ye. This is how it is coming. And it's a spontaneous development, not that somebody started it. This is how the modern mind is able to accept it, especially the scientific mind. So you see, Vivekananda's impact has been so global, so universal, and in so many ways, in so many departments of life it is coming, that it is simply amazing to sit and watch the current developments in all this. Let me tell you something more about the repercussions or after impact of Vivekananda's work there. It resulted in 14 centers in the US. If you actually visit these centers, usually when I go there, I'm either on the East Coast or West Coast. You will see so many centers dotting, and many of them have sub-centers, unaffiliated centers, vast properties with retreat houses. And there, people are very, very interested in the retreat. I also want you to know something about the Indian diaspora which has settled there. I'm sure many of them are from your own homes. But let me tell you this, the 22 million people who have settled outside India, most of them are top professionals in those countries. Every year, the US gives student visas to 80,000 of the brightest Indian students. So the cream of India is going and settling there. You know this. Now, when they are going and settling there, and after a period of settling and their work schedules and all that, naturally they become interested in all this. Naturally, it comes so naturally to them. That's why there's so much of widespread activity there. And their children are born as American citizens, but deeply rooted in. There are so many organizations there which are working towards this. I can mention Vivekananda Vidyapeeth at New Jersey. The Indian children, I can't call them Indian children actually, they are Americans by birth, by citizenship, but of Indian origin. They are having classes on Hinduism every weekend through this Vivekananda Vidyapeeth. The founder is a Gujarati couple from here, Mahendra Jani and Vandana Jani. I'm sure many of you know them. What a group they have created. Every weekend, solid classes on Hinduism for all graders, 4th graders, 5th graders, 6th graders. They learn everything. They come, by 12th grade, they come to the Vedanta philosophy and they know everything, almost everything, the most essential part of Hinduism. So such organizations are working there. And when I went there also quite recently, and they have already seen that Gayatri Mantra video, and they are doing those meditations, and 400 children are doing this in front of you. It is so encouraging to see all this. They have a huge hall. Thakur Swamiji are sitting there, and after worship, the classes begin. It is so inspiring to see all this happening in the West. And many of those children know more about Hinduism than our kids. This is happening. See, it all depends on how much energy you show in transmitting the right ideas. One great teacher can inspire 1,000 minds. And one great mother, you actually determine the psychology of your child. What you cannot instill, you can instill real sanskars, the highest sanskars in your child. So you see, you can be torchbearers of change in your own place, in your own niche, wherever you are positioned, whatever you are doing. If you bring these ideas into your life, you will actually radiate them around you. So it is so very important to preserve all these things. This is happening very naturally in the US, I can tell you that. Then, see, out of the total 208 centers, 157 centers are in India. 15 in Bangladesh, 14 in the US, 2 in Russia, and on the Belur Math website it is put 1 in South Africa. If you actually go to South Africa, I have been there, there are 14 centers. They were all 4, it was actually 14 centers, then 1 main center, and others were made sub-centers, so they are not mentioned, but each one is doing such wonderful work. Whether you go to Ladysmith or Pietermaritzburg or Johannesburg, wonderful work is going on there, because there already was a movement inspired by the main Ramakrishna movement at Belur Math. It was already going on there, so now it has been affiliated to Belur Math. So you will see tremendous work going on in South Africa, because South Africa has 1.5 million Indian population, highest outside India. So a lot of work is going on there. Then there's 1 in France, 1 in Fiji, Germany, Ireland, Singapore, Switzerland, UK, Zambia, Malaysia, all these have centers. What is the primary nature of the work there? The nature of the work there is the spread of Vedanta, mainly the teaching of Vedanta. I told you all these people who go there, they are well established in a few years' time and absolutely bereft of any form of survival needs, whether physical or mental. No ego issues. I won't say they don't have ego issues. What I mean to say is they have time and energy to give to the pure practice of these things after some time. So then what happens is they take to meditation and Vedanta very easily, because already they are people of great caliber. The very cream of India has gone. And the fact that there's so much interest in the universities of America for Vedanta as the science of consciousness, from where does this come? Again, it comes from Vivekananda. I will, you can trace every modern development to Swamiji. Without him, this would not have happened, because, the 4 yogas which were produced, they were first published in the US itself. They impacted a whole lot of minds. Swamiji's Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, they impacted a whole lot of minds. People are studying Raj Yoga as the science of religion. They are studying Jnana Yoga lectures with great concentration. Bhakti has a new meaning when you study Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Sadhana has a new meaning. It's a comprehensive book on Bhakti. And of course, Karma Yoga. Although the nature of that Karma Yoga is different in many of these countries, the essential principles of Karma Yoga remain the same. So, thousands of devotees are associated with these centers and following these yogas, very well versed with Vivekananda's entire literature, and steeped in, you can see this clearly in the institutions there. You enter the shrine, there will be 4 or 5 people sitting in meditation. See, this is what we want to see. It's not about how much you go and discuss philosophy or how much you want to do service activities. That is fine, that is all there. But if you're fundamentally meditative, everything else will follow. You will convert every karma into a karma yoga. You will convert everything into a yoga, whatever you do. So that meditative nature, that ability of the mind to turn within, that is what matters in the study of all this. So you will find a whole lot of devotees doing this. That is why I said the impact of Vivekananda can be understood by the changes it has produced in the minds of men throughout the world. Not just by institutions, not by even by the activities, but by the change in the mindset of people, due to which that results in the creation of infrastructure and activities. So this is happening just as a spontaneous development of the Ramakrishna movement. It's happening all over the world. And Vivekananda's great message of the harmony of yogas. If you study the religious history of India, you will see how much it has been, the different philosophical systems were at loggerheads with each other. It was only with the coming of Thakur and Swami Vivekananda that so much of harmony has come, intra-religious harmony and inter-religious harmony, into this entire field of spirituality. This was so very important. For the essential thing to come out, there must first of all be surface harmony, isn't it? So this has come due to their luminous lives and realizations. So making the yogas as the means for transformation, as the path towards the realization of Vedanta, has been a very key factor. And the harmony of the yogas, all 4 have to be practiced, because you have all 4 faculties. It's a constitutional necessity. So a harmonious blend of the yogas will naturally result in a forward movement towards the realization of Vedanta. So you see, the goal and the way towards it has been wonderfully formulated. And the Ramakrishna movement has produced such spiritual luminaries, men of such might and realization, that the movement will just go ahead. Vivekananda himself presented it by saying that this will go on for 1500 years, the movement. What can we do about it? You can draw great spiritual inspiration from it. And your philosophy of life, your philosophy of work, all this, if you just, enter the movement, you will find it in the air. The utter purity and elevation of human life, that which is possible to happen in human life, you will find all those possibilities here. And infrastructure has been created for you to experience that. There will always be a shrine room, there will be a library hall, there will be wonderful talks on all these topics. So this is so inspiring. When I was a little girl, this just swept me away, I used to feel this is the world, this is the ideal world, that this is how it should be. So all this has been brought into our lives by the Ramakrishna movement. Please understand this. This is the impact of the avatar. He comes to change society, isn't it? He's come to make vast changes. This is the way he's doing it. And the Ramakrishna movement actually embodies his philosophy, his vision, his purpose on coming to this earth. Please remember God becomes man so that man may become God. So the purpose of this entire thing is that we are able to divinize ourselves. People are doing it in different ways. I am telling you, the most current trend is this science of consciousness. Even young students are opting for this. You know, many of my students want their PhDs in the science of consciousness. They are not opting for any other. It is so encouraging to see this. I want to make it clear, it is not study of Vedanta as a philosophy. It is study of Vedanta as a science. And now there are UG, PG and specializations on this topic. And in fact, all the invitations from universities outside are only for this, for the discussion of this and to see how it can be accommodated within the science of consciousness, because they have consciousness studies departments all over the world, especially in the US. And one more thing which I would like to point out before I end is, see, the Ramakrishna movement is like a huge banyan tree, a huge umbrella. Many movements have arisen after that. But the strength and power of the Ramakrishna movement can be felt for the simple reason at the epicenter of this movement is the avatar of this age. Even if you don't believe in the concept of an avatar, just read the life of Sri Ramakrishna and you will understand what God manifested in human form means. You will start believing in the avatarvad when you read the life of Sri Ramakrishna. We don't talk of all this in the West, but when they read the life of Sri Ramakrishna, Chaitanandaji Maharaj's wonderful book is there on Thakur's life. So Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play, when you read it, immediately they subscribe to the understanding of God being manifested in a human form. It will naturally come into their mind, because the highest reaches of divine consciousness and the transformation of the human mind into something absolutely divine, this is so clear in the lives of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, and of course Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi. She is the working model, the practical demonstration of this mighty philosophy. So if we can bring this into our lives, there is no greater blessing than that. Sarthakavagatte Manushya Janma. This is all I can say. Thank you very much.
Couple of questions on this topic to revered Mataji from anybody. Yeah. Okay, there is one question.
Pranam Mataji. I would like to ask one question regarding the unity of religions and religious tolerance about the impact in the West. So, we in India can see it and appreciate it in everyday life, like practical life also we see this concept. Because we have been having it for centuries here. So, in the West, how is this practical, and what can they see this in everyday life and can they appreciate it? That's my question.
See, most people are able to accept Vedanta as it is. But there will always be some factions, some sections of human society which are not able to understand it. So when we talk of religious harmony, all the rational people who understand the purpose of religion and the utter need for religion for the human heart, they will always understand the harmony of religions. And this is there all over the world. The greatest support is for religion, definitely. Because Vivekananda once said, if you remove religion from society, what will remain? Do you know what he said? A forest of brutes will remain. It is religion that is transforming animal consciousness into divine consciousness, into human consciousness, and human consciousness into divine consciousness. So it's a transforming power in human life. So we can't do without religion, but only thing is to be able to find the harmony of all religions. You must focus on the principles of religion. See, Vivekananda's mode of work was like that because he understood this very obviously, and Sri Ramakrishna's life signifies the harmony of religions based on the essential principles of religion. Tell me which human being was there who became a Hindu, Christian and Muslim by turns? Sri Ramakrishna became. Yes, his sadhana was like that. He practiced Hindu sadhana, all the different paths in Hinduism. He realized the same goal. Then he worshipped Lord Jesus Christ, practiced Christianity. He realized it's the same state of consciousness, God consciousness, that they are calling the kingdom of God. He practiced the Muslim way also, the Islamic way also, and he realized it leads to the same consciousness, and that is why all these are paths towards the same goal. So you see, he is a tremendous demonstration of the unity of religions. Their purpose and meaning is very united. It's the same. With the same purpose, every religion was started. And it has the same meaning. Only the methods are different. And that's acceptable, isn't it? Why should everybody have the same method? And Vivekananda made it very clear that your method is there in your soul. And nobody can standardize it and say, you should follow this method. It is there in your soul. Most rational people in this world are accepting this wholeheartedly. In fact, it has been well accepted with the coming of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. It has been well accepted with the coming of Ramakrishna Vivekananda, I insist. Before that, it was not so well accepted. But of course, there will always be a section of humanity which is not able to come in tune with these ideas. And so you have so much of fundamentalism in the modern world. But you see, it's only a matter of time before the essential ideas percolate into all sections of human society. Everything depends on education of the masses. That's why Vivekananda insisted on that. If the right kind of education is given from childhood, any social transformation is possible. So we should aim at that.
Thank you, Mataji. We can accommodate one more question. Last question.
Pranam Mataji. So I wanted to ask you about one particular problem which is plaguing the West, especially even in India. The mental health crisis is at an all-time high, especially post-pandemic. So since you spoke of the impact of Vedanta in the West, so what role do you think it is playing in helping people deal with their mental health crisis? Because as we see and read in news and all, it is at an all-time high. So how do you see the impact of Vedanta in helping people deal with mental health crisis? Thank you.
See, when you raise your consciousness towards the highest, you take care of your mind automatically. Do you realize this? When you raise your consciousness, you automatically take care of your mind. If you don't try to raise your consciousness, your mind will falter. This is what is happening. Today's issues with mental health are to do with two things. One is this mind management. Second, it is to do tremendously with emotional insecurities. Now, both of these issues, you can't address them just like that. You must try to raise human consciousness through the practice of yoga, by bringing a little bit of Vedantic thinking into your life. As long as the mind is only committed to satisfying the body, it will remain ill, it will remain sick, because that is not what it is meant for. I told you, you are minimally body conscious even now. So how much should you invest into body? When you do only that, the mind will get sick. So this is the cause for mental health issues. So the ability to raise human consciousness will take care of all these problems. And emotional insecurities can be tackled by committed relationships. See, this is a very important part of growing up. Growing up before we grow old, taking care of our emotional health. Today it's a university subject, it's called relationship psychology. If you have committed relationships, and that is why all the social institutions of marriage, everything was framed only for this. If you take care of this, you will suffer great emotional EQ. It will be very high, your emotional intelligence will be very high. And if this is messed up, there's a definite decline in emotional health. And it leads to emotional insecurities, which is cause for mental health problems. So if we understand the relationship between all this, you will understand the need to raise human consciousness at all cost. In fact, this should not just be a course in a university as it is happening today. This is part and parcel of the education process. Vivekananda used to say, education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man. You are already perfect in your divine self. Manifest it so that you will remain you will have a healthy mind. And that is the way to live a life, a healthy life, isn't it? So you see, the way Vedanta addresses these issues naturally will help in bringing mental health everywhere. In fact, today this is common knowledge that unless you work on mind management and bringing emotional intelligence by the transformation of consciousness, our younger generation will continue to suffer mental health issues. So this knowledge has to be made more pervasive, definitely, and deepened through the practice of yoga. This is the point.
Our reverential thanks and pranams to Pravrajika Divyanandaprana Mataji for her erudite and comprehensive insights to the topic, Impact of Ramakrishna Mission in the West. Thank you, Mataji. The next talk is by Dr. Usha Vastare, neuroscientist and founder of Yogakshema, Bangalore. Dr. Vastare will speak on the topic, Philosophy of Service in Neuroscience Perspective.
Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. Om Namashri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. My loving pranams to all the Swamijis and Matajis here, and my loving pranams to the seekers and my dear students. I'm grateful to Swami Nityasthanandaji to have given me this topic, because it gave me an opportunity to re-examine and explore my life, especially for the past 25 years. So what I'm going to share today is the experience based on more than 25 years of service, doing service in many different countries, starting from West, US, Canada, UK, Europe, South Africa, and of course, India. But let's get down to the brass tacks. I'm going to ask you a question or two. This is how I would like to start off. But I don't expect you to answer this question. But that doesn't mean it's a rhetorical question. Let's explore and then figure out the answer by the end of the talk together. So what are those questions? Should we expect anything back while serving? Should we expect anything back while serving? We can only have two answers, right? Yes or no. If it is a no, why not? Why shouldn't we expect something back? If it is a yes, why? Why should we expect something back? And what should it be? So if we expect something back and we get it, and what should we do with it? Just keep these questions in the back of your mind as you go through the rest of the talk. And let's park this question and then move on. As you have heard all this morning, the philosophy of Ramakrishna mission is Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya Cha. As Swamiji was saying, it's not one or the other. It just didn't say Jagat Hitaya Cha, then you feel like you're sacrificing yourself for the welfare of others as you're figuring out your own salvation. Or it didn't say Atmano Mokshartham only. Then when you're on that path, then you become self-centered. Not self-centered with a big S, but self-centered with a small s. It is both. Only then can the path becomes joyous. Then the path itself becomes the goal, or the journey itself becomes the destination, when Atmano Mokshartham is combined with Jagad Hitaya Cha. Yes, as Swamiji said, the cha is very, very important. Also, the philosophy of Karma Yoga, according to Ramakrishna mission, is Shivajnane Jiva Seve. Service to man is service to God. Narayana Seve is Nara Seve. Madhava Seve is Manava Seve. We have all heard about it. So when we do service, how do we look at it and then do service? It's extremely important. Serving man, seeing the God in him, is the ultimate knowledge. There is nothing beyond that. So let us delve deeper into these and then see how it goes. So the aim of service of Ramakrishna mission, according to me, is to make us all karma yogis. Yeah? Yes, to make us all karma yogis, and then do what? Just so we will be eligible to acquire the ultimate jnana. What is that ultimate jnana? We will see as we go along. But Ramakrishna mission has a formula for this, a very simple formula which you have heard in different ways this morning. I'm going to bring in a different perspective to that, the neuroscience perspective to this formula. So what is this formula? This formula is based on Swami Vivekananda's maxim. You have heard this before several times this morning, which is each soul is potentially divine, and the goal is to manifest this divinity by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this by either work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and just be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines, dogmas, rituals, books, temples, everything else are secondary details, so says Vivekananda. That worship, psychic control and philosophy, we know those represent the 4 yogas. I'm not going to go into that right now. But he also says this is whole of religion. He did not say it is Indian religion. He did not say Hindu religion. It is whole of religion, any religion that you take, this is what it represents. Not only that, he says each soul is potentially divine. He did not say Indian soul, he did not say Hindu soul. Each and every soul is potentially divine. I would like you to keep both these in mind as you go through the rest of the talk. As a matter of fact, not just when you go through the rest of the talk, but the rest of our lives, we need to keep these two at the back of our minds. This is how profound this is. Based on this maxim, Ramakrishna Mission has that formula. We will see what it is. And based on that, the aim of life, whether we know it or not, the aim of life, each and everyone's life, and whether we accept it or not, whether we know it or not, the aim of life is to manifest this potential divinity that is already within us. And not only that, it's also to help manifest this divinity in others too. Whether you look at it from a philosophical perspective or you look at it from a scientific perspective, it is the same aim of life. And especially when you look at it from a scientific perspective, it makes much more sense, because science is about commonality. It has to be common, irrespective of somebody's socio-economic, educational, religious background. Not only is it common, but it's also reproducible if we follow the formula that has been given by the Ramakrishna Mission Order. So commonality and reproducibility are the two things so crucial in science. So what is that formula of Ramakrishna Mission? The maxim of Swami Vivekananda, which I just read out, is represented in a creative manner through this emblem. We know all of this, we have heard this, and I'm not going to go into what each one represents, the integration of 4 yogas as we know. However, I'm going to look at this integration of 4 yogas based on the functions of mind. Integration of 4 yogas based on 3 functions of mind. The feeling mode of mind, called the manas or the heart, usually, or technical term is the affective function of the mind. The reasoning mode of mind, called the intellect or the buddhi or the higher consciousness or the higher mind, as Mataji was saying, higher consciousness, the intellect or the cognitive function of the intellect or the mind. The willing mode of the mind, which is nothing but the cognitive function of the mind. So based on these 3 functions of the mind, the 4 yogas have been integrated. The 4 yogas, as we know, let's see how that is. We all know this, but I'm just bringing a different perspective, how to look at this integration of 4 yogas based on the 3 functions of mind. Bhakti yoga, wherein the practices are heavily played on the emotions. Emotions play a major role in the Bhakti yoga practices, whereas the Jnana yoga practices, in which the reasoning power of mind plays a huge role. And in Karma yoga and Raja yoga, it is the will that plays a major role. Will, when directed inward to understand and train our own mind, that is Raja yoga. Whereas when the will is directed outward so that we can understand and manage the engagement with the external world through the work that we do, it is termed Karma yoga. So, the same emblem of our Ramakrishna mission, if we look at it from a different way, as they say, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And all of a sudden, this emblem doesn't just represent Ramakrishna mission's emblem. It gives me goosebumps to say this is the emblem that represents all of religions, all of world religions. Because through this emblem of Ramakrishna mission, which is our emblem, we can actually understand all world religions, because all world religions are based on the permutation and combination of those 4 yogas. And of course, none of the other religions will use the word yoga, but when you look at it from the functions of the mind, we can understand all the world religions are based on those 3 functions of the mind, which is the basis for the 4 yogas. And if you ask me, this is the formula for harmony of religions, which is so very important and crucial, especially in this day and age. And if you ask me to go a step further, this is the formula for world peace. To understand each and every religion based on the 3 functions of mind, which has the basis for the 4 yogas and the integration of the 4 yogas. In my opinion, this is the biggest contribution of Ramakrishna mission, the integration of the 4 yogas to realize our own true nature. And not only our true nature, but also the ultimate reality. And what is our true nature? What is the ultimate reality? We will see that at the end of the talk. So to switch gears, when we take the traditional religious approach, traditionally karma means Vedic rituals prescribed by scriptural injunctions. So when karma done without any selfish motive, traditional religious approach says karma kanda or karma yoga can only purify the mind. Absolutely, rightly so. If we look at karma yoga in that sense of only doing Vedic rituals based on the scriptural injunctions, it can only purify the mind at best and make us eligible for the higher knowledge. So it's only the chitta shuddhi that happens through karma yoga based on the traditional religious approach. However, look at the Ramakrishna mission way. With the foundation of the traditional approach, with the foundation of practicing all the traditional practices, traditional religious practices, it goes beyond religion. And Vivekananda says that any karma can be converted into karma yoga, as just Mataji was talking about. Not just any karma which is of conscious nature, any karma which is of conscious action can be converted into karma yoga. Not only that, Vivekananda goes further to say, anybody without any exception, no matter under what socio-economic, educational, religious background one may be, anybody can become a karma yogi. So how do we convert any karma into karma yoga? We will look at that in a little while. Swamiji goes on to say further, and we know what the Advaitic practices are, right? There are only 3 Advaitic practices: Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. He says these Advaitic practices are considered as karma. And according to Swamiji, when service is done with this ultimate Advaitic bhava, it is the same as Jnana Nishtha according to the traditional Advaitins. So Swamiji's idea of seva is thus highly Advaitic, ultimate in nature. Not only that, generally speaking, in Jnana Nishtha, one seeks the reality in oneself. Again, generally speaking, in service, the aspirant seeks the reality in the served. And of course, at the highest level, there is no difference between the two. But as we are on this path, as seekers, this is how, generally speaking, it is done. So, based on this, Swami Vivekananda reasoned that karma yoga, or the selfless action performed with the Advaitic bhava, can be a path for salvation or moksha or liberation. So can we say practical Jnana yoga is karma yoga, or practical karma yoga is Jnana yoga? We don't even have to say practical karma yoga. Karma yoga is practical, right? Karma yoga in that sense can also be looked at as Jnana yoga when it is done with that ulterior bhava of Advaitic bhava. It reminds me of Vivekananda's quote that I like this a lot, because it says, bring light to the poor and bring more light to the rich, for they require more than the poor. Bring light to the ignorant and more light to the educated, for the vanities of the education of our times are tremendous. Because usually when we talk about service, we only talk about doing service to the poor, to the uneducated, to the marginalized, to the underprivileged. But Swamiji's idea of service was for humanity, not just for poor and uneducated, for the entire humanity. In a similar way, Swamiji's idea of humanity, one need not be religious at all to be karma yoga. This is what we said earlier, that anybody can become a karma yogi. So both religious and non-religious people alike can go through the karma yoga process. So again, based on these two ideas, I say that the biggest contribution of Ramakrishna mission is this broader and deeper understanding of karma yoga to serve the entire humanity, not just to the poor, not just to the uneducated, and not just by the religious people, by the non-religious people also. So let us look at this service aspect from religious perspective and non-religious perspective, and see and understand what does volunteerism mean and what is service, and try to understand the difference between the two. Because in West, volunteerism is big. We may not know that. It is really big. We see even kids who are just teenagers, who are in just high school, they start their volunteering work right as teenagers. So we should try and understand the difference between volunteerism and service. Let's do that. And of course, that based on the integration of the 4 yogas, which is based on the 3 functions of mind. So, let us compare and understand the religious approach and the non-religious approach based on the 4 yogas. However, a disclaimer. While I go through this, absolutely there are no value judgments. I'm going to make value neutral judgment here. Not comparing and contrasting and making one something higher and lower, no hierarchy. This is purely to understand the difference between the religious approach and non-religious approach, and how even when you start off with a non-religious approach, how when it is done with the purest of intent can lead to liberation or moksha. We will see that both from a religious perspective and also from scientific perspective. So the first, Bhakti Yoga. The religious approach we know, Bhakti Yoga is love of God, love for God. When we start out initially, this love of God is mixed with some selfish motive. Because we pray God, we love God, just so we get what we want, and just so we don't get what we don't want. We want more happiness, so we pray for that, and we don't want to suffer, so we pray for that. There is always something mixed up. Again, no right or wrong in any of the statements I'm going to be making. To understand in a very objective manner, I'm trying to compare and contrast. That leads to, as we do Karma Yoga, as Chitta Shuddhi happens, that Bhakti becomes pure, and it is what we call as love for love's sake. This is the ultimate, what Ramakrishna calls as Ahaituki Priti, and also Naishtaki Bhakti. And that same love for God, for non-religious people, when it is put for their work or for the cause that they are working for, it is just love for work. Only when it is towards God, we call that bhakti. That love for the work, that love for the cause that they do is nothing but bhakti yoga. And coming to Jnana Yoga, the religious approach, as we know, is the dualistic or the non-dualistic, personal or impersonal. Actually, we shouldn't even be saying or. If we have read Ramakrishna's life, it should be both personal and impersonal, dualistic and non-dualistic, both, as we know, and knowing oneself and knowing God. But the Ramakrishna way is truly seeing God in others, which is the ultimate, the Advaitik Bhava. Whereas with the non-religious people, they believe in the interconnectedness and the interdependence of beings and also with non-beings, which translates to knowing oneself and knowing others. And Ramakrishna way, for the non-religious people, what did Vivekananda say? He said, just see good in others. Do good to others. So seeing good in others is the Ramakrishna mission way. Look at this. When they start out with just seeing good in others, and as Karma Yoga proceeds, as purification of mind happens, Chitta Shuddhi happens, that goodness translates to godness without their knowledge. Yes, they may start off by seeing only good in people, doing good to people, but this is what leads to seeing godness in others. The Raja Yoga way, which is common for both religious and non-religious, is it might start off primarily as training the mind as Raja Yoga or as a secondary aspect of doing Karma Yoga. naturally the training of mind happens, or it could be a byproduct. So there is hardly any difference between the religious approach and the non-religious approach. However, when it comes to karma yoga, I would like to do a thought experiment on this. Actually, I can spend about half hour just on this slide. Of course, we don't have that kind of time. We'll finish it within few minutes. Again here, I'm trying to bring in the aspect of understanding karma yoga through this thought experiment. In fact, we have all gone through this, many of the stages that I'm going to put forth in this thought experiment. I myself have gone through this many stages, many examples that I'm going to give you. Again, there is no right or wrong here. We're not going to make any judgments when we do this thought experiment. Extremely important for us to understand this. So just imagine, okay, you're a young child. You're going with your parents in the vehicle, and your vehicle is stopped at the traffic light, and a little girl comes to beg. As a little child, what did we do? We prodded the parents and asked them to give some money so that you can give it to that girl. We said, not just that is not enough, give me more, I want to give it to her. Because as the child, either it's the same age as ours or even younger, and we see that child suffering. At that age, we didn't understand about compassion, we didn't understand about empathy, we didn't understand about sympathy. It's only our mirror neurons that are firing up, that we could feel whatever that other girl was feeling, and that was enough for us to help that child. Now, several years have passed. Now you're an adult. You're again in the vehicle, you're stopped at the traffic light, and now you see a young girl holding her baby, trying to beg. And then you scrounge into your wallet or your purse, take out some change, and then give it to that young lady. And then you think, she's so much younger than me, she already has a child. I don't even know if she's married or this child is out of wedlock. You feel for her. Either it could be empathy, it could be sympathy, it could be compassion. You don't even think about it. You just give something. This has happened to us, right? We do this. And now, several years have passed, and now, again you're going in the vehicle. You're all again stopped at the traffic light, and you're happily conversing with your friend. You have something in your mind, and you see the beggar through the rear view mirror. And you don't want that mood to be disturbed. And you hope against hope that the red light quickly changes to green, because you don't want to see that beggar, and your moods, you don't want your moods to be disturbed. Many a times this also happens, right? And then you roll up the window. All of this again, without any value judgments. We have all done these things. And hopefully after today, we will look at all of this from a different perspective. All of this are still okay. Look at this. You have grown again, and you have many friends, intellectual friends. Some of your friends are even lawyers, and some of them are always looking at something that is not right in each and every situation, analytical all the time, right? You have people like that in your lives. So you understand something more, or not even understand, you read or you hear from somebody saying that you don't want to give any money to the beggars, you don't know what the racket behind this begging. You would have heard from some people in your lives. And then what you do, you again traveling in the car, you stop off at the traffic light and you see a young man coming to the car to ask for some money. And at that time, what do? Not only you don't want to give any money, you give him gyan. Why? You're so young, you're so fit to work. Why don't you work and earn money? Why are you begging, you say? You judge that person. You have no idea what he has gone through in his life at that young age for him to ask for few rupees from you. Because you're an intellectual, you are, or you have some friends who have told all of this. I'm not saying none of that was wrong. That is also there. But what right do we have to judge each and every beggar? And we treat that beggar as a criminal. And we don't even give even few rupees for that person. Again, no right or wrong in any of this. But from now on, can we start looking at things from a different perspective? Because as they say, spiritual life is nothing but, it's the same day-to-day experience and activities that we go through, but we have to look at things from a totally different perspective, that's all. So can we change the way we look at things with this example, with this thought experiment that we went through? Can we start looking at it in a different way? The next time the beggar comes in, rather than judging or rather than just sympathizing with that person and giving some rupees, first, can you look at that person without judging that person, without feeling bad looking at their dirty clothes and then smelly bodies? Can you just give money in a very objective manner first stage? And then as you practice this, next, can you look at that person, smile at that person, and give not just as alms, but share what you have, just like you would share with your friends or your loved ones? Can you see that beggar in the same way and then share whatever you want to share? When we do both of this, then it leads to the third stage. And at that time, the motto of Ramakrishna mission should come into our heads. And can we see that? See the God in that person and feel that it is your opportunity to serve that God within that person, and then share whatever you want to do. Of course, this is the ultimate, but at least for few moments, it is possible for us to be feeling that way and giving. As long as we are intellectually convinced about this, then all we need to do is to put it into action. At least those few moments, can you see that God in that beggar? And do this. This is how you can convert any action, conscious action, any karma into karma yoga. With this, then we can get or give numerous examples. Every day the work that we do, whether house chores or cooking, cleaning, everything that we do, when we do it in a conscious way, with this idea behind, any karma can be converted into karma yoga. Not complaining and moaning about the work that we have to do, whether it's at home or at office or whatever we do. When we don't complain and we keep learning from each and every experience, with this in mind who we truly are and why do we have to do any work or service. With that, any karma can be converted into karma yoga as long as it is done in a conscious way, not just in a mechanical way. So, when we look at this from this religious and non-religious perspective, from the religious perspective, we know we need to give, it's our duty, or it could be out of daya. Daya is sympathy, not even compassion, sympathy. Or we do this, we do service because we want to gain punya, or we want to get rid of papa, so we give or we do the service. So it's always the religious approach usually is the dualistic approach, and usually that is done for the poor and the uneducated or the marginalized or the underprivileged. However, the Ramakrishna mission way says, do the same thing. We don't have to do anything new. All we need to do is to change in the way we look at whatever we are doing. When we do that with a non-dualistic approach, seeing God in others, and it becomes karma yoga. As I've already said, when it is done in that Advaita Bhava, this is the ultimate, and then we can serve the entire humanity, not just the poor and the uneducated. And then how do we look at this from a non-religious perspective? Any NSS students here from any of the college? Can you raise your hands? Yes, I see that. Okay. There are quite a few students who belong to NSS, right? What is that? NSS? National Social Service, right? Okay. So, it's for you all, especially for the NSS students. We do this volunteering out of compassion. We start off with that. We do this for the underprivileged, for the poor, for the needy, yes? And we also want to share. We have something within us, some talent that we want to share. Or you know something and so you want to share that with others who are in need. Or you have something, some resources that you want to share. Or it could be for time pass or for networking, because one of my friends is in that NSS group and I have heard that they do some fun activities and I want to be with that friend, so I join the NSS. Fine, no right or wrong in any of this. For networking purposes we do, or we have a cause that we believe in, so we join in and do any type of volunteering, not just for NSS students. So doing good to others is volunteering, and the focus is always on the other. This is the main difference with volunteerism and service. The focus is always the other. Whereas the Ramakrishna way says, yes, doing good to others is good, but first see the goodness in others and then do good. And let the focus be on you and not the other. What do I mean by this? Focus should be on you. We will see that at the end of the talk. So, this is the comparison of religious perspective and the non-religious perspective about karma yoga, and especially the traditional approach and the Ramakrishna mission way. And the same thing is depicted, the emblem that represents the integration of 4 yogas, as you know, is depicted in a different form as a form of a mandap, wherein for the religious approach, the foundation is bhakti yoga, whereas for the non-religious approach, the foundation becomes karma yoga. And the pillars are Raja Yoga, Karma yoga and Jnana yoga, any combination of those two or three, all the three. But somewhere in the religious, non-religious approach, as long as there is love for the work that you do, love for the cause that you're after, then you're safe. So let us look at that from the scientific perspective, what each yoga represents, which I've already gone through, but a quick one before I get into the neuroscience aspect. The Karma Yoga, which is the foundation for the non-religious approach, means selfless work that we do. The Bhakti Yoga, as I've already said, love for the work that we do. What is Raja Yoga? See, we may not know this, we may not understand this, but most of the people, most of the times, we live in our heads. We think positive, we feel positively, we even speak in a positive manner. But when it comes to putting that into action, only few people do that. Because most of the times we are living in our heads. Raja Yoga here represents coming out of living in the head is what the training is all about, the Raja Yoga. And the Jnana Yoga, looked at it from a scientific perspective, is nothing but the way to evolve. What we call it as liberation and salvation, or Jivan Mukta state, we call that as evolving. The major difference here is this evolving is not a stage to reach, but it's on a moment to moment to moment basis. Yes, we can take up our mind to the highest level. I'm saying mind in the most general way, at a higher consciousness level, when we are working at that stage, that is when we are evolving. Yes, even while we are working at that, there are times that we may fall down. It is quite okay. We have the cerebral capacity to get up and go to that higher state once again. No other animal has this capacity except human beings. We have the cerebral capacity. No matter how low the mind gets down to, for whatever reason, and it does happen, but the next moment we have the ability to rise ourselves to that higher consciousness level. This is what we say evolving in a scientific angle. And that evolving is a process, and it's a process until our last breath, and it's on a moment to moment to moment basis. And according to me, this is a prelude or a prerequisite to becoming a Jivan Mukta. So, yeah, I'll quickly conclude in a few minutes, but this is the important aspects. Even knowing all of this, something prevents us. This is at an intellectual level. What is it that prevents us? And neuroscience says there is an innate negativity bias that is within all of us. It's a deep subject matter, and there are many YouTube videos under Yogakshema YouTube link. You can go and refer to this. I will just touch upon it that is necessary only for this time, which is because of this negativity bias that is innate within all of us, we are going back and forth between past and future like a pendulum. Looking at past with regret and the future with full of anxiety, and we are never in the present moment. But look at this. Past and future are only our mental constructs. When we have to do something, an action has to take place. When we have to do something, it has to happen in the present moment, not even the next minute. When the next minute is happening, it is the present moment. So only the present moment can we do the action. But because of the negativity bias, it prevents us to be in the present moment, because the mind is going back and forth between past and future and never allows us to be in the here and now and here. Because of that, what happens? We live either in the past or future, live in our heads, which leads to inaction. Only when we are in the present moment, here and now and here, are we capable of doing any action. So all we need to do is to take care of just one moment at a time. All we need to do, managing our mind, training our mind, is only one moment at the time, focusing on this moment. So all we need to do is to train ourselves. How should we be in the present moment, here and now and here? And of course, there is a neuroscientific tool, again, which I will quickly go through. And there are many videos on Yogakshema YouTube link that you can go and check out on the mindfulness. We have done workshop for several days on mindful living, where you can check it out if you like that. But mindfulness is a way to train ourselves to be in the present moment, here and now and here. And then what do we do after being in the present moment? Again, not complain and moan and complain about what is not right, but be in the present moment and do the right thing each time and every time. Being in the present moment and taking the right action is what we need to do. So that is the neuroscience tool that we give. You know, for scientists, just giving tools is not going to be enough. We need to know how it works. We need to get into the mechanism of action of how Karma Yoga works at the level of mind, brain and behavior. So the mechanism of action, how this works, is through a process called neuroplasticity. Again, it's a deep subject. Many YouTube videos are in Yogakshema link. You can go through that. But very simply put, in less than a minute, I will tell you what neuroplasticity is. All it is thinking about doing good, feeling about doing good, speaking about doing good is not going to cut it. Is not going to be enough. Thinking, feeling and speaking about good has to result in the right action. Then and only then, neuroplasticity, which is nothing but changes in the structure and function of the brain, that happens. See, thinking and feeling is at the mind level. When we just change our mind, yes, there will be some changes in the brain, but there are only temporary changes. For long-lasting changes to happen, the thinking and feeling has to be followed by actions, by our behavior. Then and only then long-lasting changes in the brain can happen. This is the mechanism of action of Karma Yoga. Now, all of a sudden, Karma Yoga looks at it from a very different perspective. This is the science of Karma Yoga, when we dig deep into the mechanism of action. So quickly, what is the benefits of service from a scientific perspective? When service is done, it can be done in a therapeutic way. And we know, even at Yogakshema, we have used service and then as a therapeutic tool to treat depression and anxiety and many other mental health conditions and other physical health conditions too. So service is the best form of therapy, and especially in West, this is being used in a big way, and we see the changes happening. And I myself I can vouch for that. When I was going through existential crisis, if you may, and going through depression, I have done service back in US and I know how it has helped. Started off as volunteering. That's when I knew how you can convert that into something else, and it became therapeutic, and we use that now as a tool. That leading to having zest for life. Otherwise, many times we just go through the motions of life, every day doing the same thing in a mechanical manner without having zest for life. That leads to happiness. And this is the way what positive psychology says, bringing meaning and purpose to life, which leads to what we scientifically call it as evolving. These are the benefits of service, looked at it from a neuroscience perspective. So to conclude, yes, we will go back to the two questions that I asked. Should we expect anything back while serving? I say absolutely yes, because giving is receiving. And what do we need to expect? What is happening to us? What is happening within us? This reminds me of Swami Ranganathanandaji's, our 13th president of the Ramakrishna order. He said, are you growing spiritually? Are you more loving? Are you more kind? Are you more understanding? These are the changes that we need to expect within ourselves. When we do that, what are the changes at the level of mind, brain, and behavior? It can only happen in two ways, either intangible or tangible. At the intangible level, what happens, changes at the level of mind and brain, is the intangible way. And when it comes to the level of our behavior, it is the tangible way. We can see the changes happening within us. And this is what we say evolving in science. This is how. And this is what we need to expect. Changes happening within ourselves at the level of mind, at the level of brain, at the level of our behavior. And this is again, Swami Ranganathanandaji says, keep interpersonal relationships as a way of philosophy of service, he says in his book on philosophy of service. So this is again an answer to the question somebody was asking last time. So the true measure of karma yoga is to see the changes in our behavior from inside and out. The second question, what do we do with this when we see the changes in ourselves? Oh, just help others to evolve, scientifically saying, or philosophically saying, help manifest the divinity in others too, one and the same. So to conclude, the mission of Ramakrishna order is to make us all karma yogis, so that we are eligible for that ultimate jnana to understand our own true nature and the ultimate reality, which is what we call is evolving, a way to evolve. So to understand ourselves and understand the reality, what is it? He said, I will tell you at the end of the talk. I'm going to end with two quotes. The first quote explains what is our true nature and what is the ultimate reality. And the second quote, I'll conclude on service. Sufi mystic Rumi, he says, I went looking for God, and I found only myself. He goes on further to say, I went looking for myself, and I found only God. This is what is our true nature and what is the ultimate reality, one and the same, as Mataji just said. Tattvamasi, aham brahmasmi. Very profound. I'll end this talk with the quote on Tagore on service, a beautiful quote. He says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Usha Vastare, for your illuminating talk on the philosophy of service. May now kindly request Swami Mangalanathanandaji to propose the vote of thanks.
I think you have little patience for vote of thanks. I know your belly has secreted acid. I expect you to sit for 5 minutes, especially the students. From morning, we have heard 4 papers presented systematically by the resource persons. All this has been planned well by Revered Swami Nityastanji Maharaj, the Adhyaksha of the Ramakrishna Math, Bangalore. As the first paper presented by Revered Swami Nikleshwaranji Maharaj on relevance of Ramakrishna mission in the present context, he referred to the messages of Swami Vivekananda to manifest divinity and to preach unto mankind how to manifest it every moment of life, with many examples connected to Swamiji's life and Ramakrishna mission. We thank Revered Maharaj, Nikleshwaranji Maharaj, to come all the way from Rajkot to deliver this paper, to present this paper for this 125 years of Ramakrishna movement. And we request Revered Maharaj to accept a small gift as a token of our reverence, gratitude and wishes. The second paper was presented by Revered Swami Paramashivanji, who is heading our digital platform, and it was a innovative idea, especially for the young students, that a monk of Ramakrishna Mission is doing his research on the digital platform, including he referred to the chatbot GPT. We request to accept this token of gift as a token of our gratitude, regards. And as a third paper presented by Revered Pravrajika Divyanandaprana ji, she was traveling from past 1 month, I think, in USA and England, and she has come all the way from Delhi for our sake to present her paper. She referred to many things, and the one thing that I liked was the clapping of the audience was the welcoming of the Vedanta idea of Swamiji, not just the idea of Swamiji. And we thank Revered Mataji for coming all the way from Delhi to accept this gift as a token of our reverence, gratitude and best wishes. And the final paper was presented by Dr. Usha Vastare on the philosophy of service and neuroscience perspective. She referred to, she referred to the negative bias, the mirror neurons that you can see in the Puranas, Ramayana, etc., and concluded her talk with a quote from Rabindranath Tagore. And we thank Dr. Usha Vastare to enlighten on the subject, and we request to accept our small gift as a token of our prayers, best wishes and regards. So the first session concludes here, and the main item is yet to happen. You are requested to take your food sumptuously, to be an active participant for the panel discussion. Don't be a drowsy participant, because she was referring to conscious activity. Let your actions be a conscious activity for the panel discussion. I request you to be here by 2 p.m. Have your food leisurely, but not beyond 2 p.m. in the open auditorium of Ramakrishna Sabhangana. Please be here at 2 p.m. Thank you.
All the participants are requested to wear the badge for the before proceeding to lunch, because that is being checked. Kindly wear the badge, please. Thank you.
ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಹಾಕ್ಬೇಕಂತ
ಮಾತಾಡೋಗೋಯ್ತು, ನಾನೇ ಹೇಳಬಿಟ್ಟೆ.